right up there on the edge of that grass. You see some fish out here suspended. Golly. Oh my Lord. I have caught I've got a tank here, oh my gosh. Oh my Lord, look at this bass I've just caught. Oh, I've caught like a 7-8 pounder right here. Oh my gosh. Oh my Lord. Ah, look at that bass right there. Now that's what you catch. Now that fish hit it like there was no tomorrow. I mean, and that right there, that's a new Zoom swim bait on a 1/2 ounce VMC head. And look at the size of that bass right there. That bass will go 7.5, 8 pounds, or maybe even a little bigger, I don't know, but that is a whale of a bass. Look what he did to my swim bait. But like I said, I was coming off that bank out there a little deeper, and that big female bass is just sitting there waiting to spawn. God, what a beautiful bass. Oh. We've really got a perfect scenario for today. You know, we've got 56-degree water, we've got pre-spawn bass. These bass are, you know, setting up, getting ready to spawn here probably within the next month. And, you know, we've got a fairly windy day. You know, we can see bait that's getting blown in. You know, and that's another thing. A lot of times in the early spring, you want to fish baits that kind of fish different levels of that water column, like a swim baits and jerk baits. And what you'll find is those fish will get into different layers of water as it warms, as they start to prepare to come into spawn. As they, you know, because those female bass, they're going to, of course, one, feed up. Number two, they're going to start to warm up those eggs, and they're going to try to get up around the objects and get up in the water column and the warmer layers of water. What I'm basically doing, I'm fishing this bait in relatively shallow water, less than 10 feet of water. And I'm using a 7.5-to-1 Team Blues Pro reel. I'm starting my retrieve out pretty fast, and as I come out off of the bank, you know, I'm seeing fish out here suspended and near the bottom, anywhere from, you know, 5 to 8 foot in this little bit off the bank in this deeper water. So as I come off of the bank, I'm starting to slow my retrieve, not stopping it, but starting to slow it to cause that bait to try to follow that contour of the bank down. But I'm only throwing that bait into maybe, you know, 2 or 3 feet of water at the beginning. And there's some old dead, I guess, weeds or grass, and I'm just kind of basically slow rolling it. As I get out here deeper, I'm starting to slow it down a little more and a little more. And if I think I've hit the bottom, then I may speed it up a time or two and fish it up. But there's one, there's a better one out there. Well, not real big, but better. Yeah, not a bad one. Not a bad one on the old Zoom swim bait. Man. You know, I threw it up there in shallow water, and I was bringing that bait off the edge of that old grass, and man, all of a sudden, look how fat. What a pretty bass that is right there. I was through that Zoom swim bait up there, right up there on the edge of that dead grass, started slow rolling it off, and I've got that on a 1/2 ounce VMC head, and man, he just ticked it. You know, the hardest thing to do once you catch a few bass on a swim bait, especially if you catch a big one like that and your heart gets you get all excited and your heart rate gets up, is you have a tendency to start reeling too fast. So sometimes right afterwards you don't catch very many because you're reeling your swim bait too fast, keeping it up too much. So I'm gonna have to try to focus on trying to slow down a little bit after catching that big one. I got a little excited on that one. Those great big ones like that do tend to get me a little excited. And I'm usually a pretty even-keeled person. My prediction is somewhere this point runs out here. Somewhere along this point there ought to be a big bass too. Now I'm throwing this on a 7'6" Lew's Custom Series heavy cover. This is actually a 7.6 flipping stick, and you know, whenever you throw swim baits, a lot of times you have to use a little bit heavier rods and reels, because even I'm throwing this on a 1/2 ounce VMC head. You know, once you add the weight of that swim bait and a 1/2 ounce head, you know, you can get up, most of your swim baits are going to be 1 ounce or 3/4 or even better. There's one right there. That's a little one, but boy, man, he was out here kind of suspended off the bank. He's not that last one I caught could have ate him. But as you can see, he was suspended out here. But you know, that's a little old, probably 12.5, 13-inch bass. And as you can see, he did not shy away. That bait's almost half the size of him. So, you know, fish of every size will bite these. So, you know, it's not only it's a great big fish bait, but you know, little ones won't shy away from it either. Whenever you're fishing spring, summer, fall, I don't care when it is, and you know, you've got fairly clean water, you know, a spinnerbait has a lot of flash, and you know, a swim bait has kind of the same characteristics in that tail moves water, but it's a much more natural look than a spinnerbait with a flashing and clanging of the blades. And you know, a swim bait is always a very viable option spring, summer, or fall whenever you're in clear water, especially, you know, we've got pretty good wind blowing in here on this bank, and it's really kind of a perfect setup. And that swim bait looks so natural even in clear water that, you know, a lot of times those bass won't pass it up, where a spinnerbait puts out so much more flash and so much more of a glow with those blades that a lot of times it doesn't look very natural. It doesn't look very realistic to a bass. So a swim bait is another bait to keep in mind. It's, you know, especially if you live on a clear water lake or a clear water environment, or I don't care where you're at in the United States, it's always a very good option, you know, to fish in the same exact places that you would throw a spinnerbait or even a crankbait. Let me get my hands on you. And the swim bait just fell out of his mouth. How big is that? How big is that bass? That's two of the biggest fish on that Zoom swim bait I've caught all year. Oh my gosh, that fish has got to be 7, 8 pounds. Bye-bye.